One interesting aspect of sport is TV. And we've mentioned TV a number of times, but specifically for this question, and I'll start with the question, is how important do you think professional squash is to the development and popularity of squash? Now, I think it's probably quite clear. It's quite clear. The more a sport is on TV, the more popular it is. But it's this chicken and egg situation. Is it on TV because it's more popular, or is it more popular because it's on TV? And another issue that we've got here with this question is that some things look great on TV and some things don't. And we've also got the question of, if it looks great, do I enjoy watching it? Let me give you a specific example. If I'm watching television, which is actually very rare, if I'm flicking through the channels and I see show jumping, where the rider jumps over fences, I'll actually watch that for about 20 minutes. I'm okay to watch that for a little bit of time. Have I ever been on a horse? Yeah, twice. But it's one of those things where they just walk up and down through the mountains. Do I want to ride a horse? Hell no. My hips just wouldn't take it, and they're beautiful animals, but I don't want to go on a horse. So why do I watch it? Well, because it's interesting to watch. So we've got this disconnect between what I will watch and what I want to do. And there are other sports that are on the TV a lot that I certainly don't want to do. I mean, football would be a good example, basketball. You know, those are the two sports that are on the TV a lot where I live in the Basque Country. So I'm unclear on what I believe. If squash were on TV a lot more, would it be more popular among people? Yeah, probably. But is it good to watch on TV? Personally, I don't think it's good to watch for non-players, and I think I've mentioned this a number of times before. So this is one of the problems that we have, is that I don't think squash looks great on TV, and it's got nothing to do with how it's presented, because I think the Squash TV does an absolutely fantastic job. I just don't think that it comes across, it's presented in a way that people understand, and I don't think there's any changes that you could really do to make that happen. You have to be on court. Now, squash is pretty popular around the world, but you know what sport is more popular in the UK? Fishing. You don't see fishing on TV. Why? Because watching somebody fish is boring as heck. At least I think it is. Now, I fished when I was a teenager. I fished quite a lot and I loved it. So we got this watching and participating completely different. And imagine just for a second that professional squash disappeared, which it did over the pandemic, but also it disappeared for squash players as well. Squash players couldn't play. But imagine that for some reason, nobody went to squash matches, there were no sponsors, there's no professional squash anymore. Would it really seriously affect how much squash is played around the world, played in your country, junior development? And honestly, I don't know. I'm not saying we get rid of the pro circuit, of course not. I mean, I'm sure it has a small effect on a small number of juniors, and I'm sure you could link me to a bunch of places on Instagram or Twitter of some up and coming junior who's like so into squash and wants to be a professional, and those juniors, yes, they're affected by what happens in the squash, and they probably watch professional squash all the time. But most juniors, do they care? Maybe they do. I don't know. What about most adults? I don't think most adults care. I don't think a lot of adults would care one little bit about what happens in professional squash. So where am I going with this question? Well, my question is that all of the money and all of the effort that's spent into professional squash, would it be better spent into developing the game, developing outdoor courts, making sure squash is more accessible for people? I don't know. So it's a big question, but that original question is, do you think professional squash is important for the development and popularity of squash in general? For specific groups, juniors, probably. But for Other groups, I don't know. And then you could argue, well, if we don't support the juniors in later life, we don't get people playing. And here's one last question for you. And you won't know because I don't know if anybody knows. What percentage of people who play regularly would be, I don't know, twice a month, played as juniors? Did we get people playing as juniors and then starting again? Or did people not play it and then start playing? I really don't know. I think that's an incredibly interesting question. And squash development and popularity should be our most important topic at the moment, because we need to make sure that squash is played as much as possible. On the screen at the moment, somewhere up here, is a playlist of all of the other questions for you to look at. And probably down here somewhere is another video that YouTube thinks is a really good fit for you. And probably down here is a subscription button. If and only if you think my content is useful, please consider subscribing. And remember, do something every single day to improve your squash. See ya.